So I have some bad news and I have some good news. The bad news is that you might be using your Instagram stories wrong, but the good news is that I'm gonna help you in this video. So I'm gonna be sharing the most common mistakes that you might be making on your stories. I'm gonna be sharing my top hacks for improving your story views, and I'm gonna be telling you about a very recent update which has come to Instagram stories. And most significantly, I'm going to be telling you about a secret update that is currently being tested that will genuinely change Instagram stories in a major way. I can't overdo this enough. This update is major, and I'll be talking about that at the end of the video. So stick with me. Before we get into it though, don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you like this type of content. I upload videos just like this every single week, and I've got a bunch of freebies that you might love as well in my description. Let's get to the video. Okay, there are 4 things that you're potentially doing wrong on your Instagram stories. These are the most common things that I come across when I am analyzing my clients' accounts, right? The first is that you are posting too much unoriginal content. So this is content that already exists elsewhere. So usually it's like when you're sharing a feed post to your stories. I don't care if it's your content that you're sharing to your stories or if it's someone else's content. You have to limit the amount of unoriginal content you are sharing on your stories. Ideally, you don't want it to make up more than 20% of your daily story content. And the reason why is because it's not that engaging. I think it has a place. Use it from time to time, you know, promote your recent post. Why not? Share that quote that you love. Why not? But to have it as every single story, no, it's a no from me. It's not going to work. People will click through and be like, why am I even clicking through this story? I'm bored. They'll click off, and once you lose a story viewer, it's very hard to get them back. The next thing that you might be doing wrong, and I do this sometimes, so I'm definitely not perfect, is super long monologues. So you know when you do a piece to camera, so you're like looking at the camera and you're talking. Love the fact that you're doing that, by the way. Really powerful forms of story content. However, you got to make sure it's not going on for too long. Sometimes people do that and they talk for like 5 minutes, and I hate to break it to you, but people are not watching your story content for 5 minutes. They are there for some quick hits of like dopamine. They want to click through it, they want to get some value, they want to get some entertainment, and then they want to keep it moving. So when you're talking to the camera for a long time, even if you've got captions, you're going to lose people's attention. Another mistake is that you might be using one form of media. So what I mean by that is when you are only showing photos to your stories or only sharing videos. It's really powerful when you mix it up and you use different forms of media throughout your story content. You don't have to do like one video, one photo, one video, one photo. You don't have to do it like that, right? I just mean that if you're going to post 8 things to your story in one day, you want to make sure that a few of them are videos and a few of them are photos. It keeps it so much more dynamic and engaging for the viewer. The final thing that you might be doing wrong is that you've just got too much story content. Did you know that the limit for the amount of content you could put on your stories is 100? Because I didn't. 100 posts! Hun, who needs that? Unfortunately, some people, and that's a problem. If you've got that much story content where people are just clicking and they can see at the top that there's a lot more content to get through, they're gonna give up, because who's got the time? Remember what I said about the quick dopamine hits? That applies here, right? They're gonna swipe, go onto someone else's story and keep it moving. And keep in mind what I've just said for the end of this video when I share the top secret update, because it's relevant to what I've just spoken about. So mysterious. Okay, so now I've spoken about the top 4 mistakes that you're making with your Instagram stories. Let's talk about my top hacks for increasing the amount of people who are watching your stories. Hack number 1, you've probably heard this one before, let your stories die. So I know that sounds super tragic, because we're using the word die. It's not as morbid as you think. You just need to let your stories expire. That's a better word, isn't it? Let your stories expire and then wait a bit before you start posting again. The reason why is because it kind of re-triggers the algorithm. And when you start posting again, Instagram's gonna look at that content with fresh eyes. So you gives yourself a new opportunity for you to really hit the ground running and upload some really engaging story content. Moving on to tip number 2, which is linked to what I just said. How do you make your stories more engaging? Well, why not use some engagement stickers? These are things like the question box, the poll box, the heart slider, anything that requires your audience to physically engage with the screen. Those stickers are really powerful, and the reason why is because it allows your audience to signal to the algorithm that they like your story. And if you think about it, with all our other types of content on Instagram, people can like it, they can comment, they can share. What's the equivalent of people doing that on your stories? Well, it's engaging with those stickers and of course hitting that little love heart button at the bottom of your story content. Next up, get people to DM you. Get people to respond to your stories with a DM. This is by far the strongest signal that you can send to Instagram's algorithm. When people respond to your stories with DMs, you are going to see a huge increase in the amount of views that your story is getting. Like, I promise you this, right? Perfect example. I have a lot of fake pages. Like, no, I don't have them. I didn't make them. Someone out there, some scammer, keeps on creating fake pages of me and other creators. And they'll have like my name and all my content, but there'll be a slight change in my name. And they'll have a couple thousand followers, so people think that it's me. And then they'll use that to scam people. It's very frustrating. It's like a daily thing that I'm working through. It's very annoying. Every single time I share a screenshot of the fake page to my story, because obviously I need to warn people, that story will blow up. And the reason why is because it triggers people to want to DM me. People want to respond to that story by saying, oh my God, they just followed me, or oh my God, they just messaged me, or oh, I'm so annoying that this is still happening to you. So I get all those very lovely, very caring DMs, but because I'm getting so many DMs, Instagram's algorithm is like, oh my God, this must be an amazing story. This content this Jade just shared must be phenomenal. So therefore they push it out and more people see it. My final tip for you to increase your story views is to create a series. Create something that people want to come back to. Create something that's a weekly installment on your channel. For example, Friday Q&As or Friday coffee chats, where you hop on your stories, you use the question box and you answer questions from your audience. Creating something that your audience want to refer back to and they know like, oh, today's Friday, so I'm gonna head to her stories. That's really powerful. You're giving people a reason to continuously visit your page. And also you're giving people a reason to continuously check your stories. Okay, now here comes the exciting part, the updates. So the update that has recently come to Instagram stories, this isn't the secret update that they're testing, this is the official update, right? Is that Instagram stories will now be 60 seconds long. They've been talking about this for a while, they've been testing it for a while, and now it's started to be rolled out. So you'll know if you can create 60-second stories because you'll get this notification, which will basically tell you that, hey, 60-second stories are now a thing. Now, this is all part of Instagram's strategy to simplify their video features. It's an extension of their decision to combine the reels and videos together under one tab. It's all part of their strategy to just try and simplify things, right? How do I feel about it though? And how we're going to use this? Well, I actually asked my audience like how they felt about this potential update a couple of months back when I first heard about it, and they didn't feel great about it, and I get why. The reason why is because when people are browsing through stories, as I mentioned previously, people don't always want to sit and listen to you or watch a video for 60 seconds. The mindset we have when we're looking at stories is quick. We just kind of want to see quick bits of content and we want to be able to navigate content quite easily and freely. And if we have a bunch of 60-second videos amongst our story content, it becomes a little bit harder for us to do that. So the chance that our engagement might drop if we start to utilize this feature too heavily. I also recommend that if you do choose to use the 60-second feature, so like if you're doing like a monologue and you're speaking to the camera, not only not to do it for too long, as I mentioned previously, but to really pay attention to the words that you're putting on the screen. So using the caption sticker is a great place to start. It means that there's captions on the screen. But if you're gonna do longer videos of you talking, you should probably just summarize, like actually write out yourself what you're talking about. And the reason why is because that means that someone can read that little paragraph on your story content and skip, so they don't have to watch the whole 60 seconds. If you use the caption sticker, they still have to watch the whole 60 seconds because the captions are only going to be on the screen when you're actually speaking. So they still have to watch the whole 60 seconds. Whereas if you've typed out exactly what you're saying in that video, they can just read that paragraph and keep it moving. I hope that makes sense, but that's just another thing that we can do that's going to help with our engagement, although it will take a little bit longer when it comes to us actually producing and sharing our stories. All right, drum roll please. Jamie, my video editor, thank you. It's the time that you've all been waiting for. I'm going to be talking about this secret update to Instagram stories that is in testing. Really important to remember that it's in testing. It has not been released yet, and I personally hope that it does not be released. So this update would change our Instagram stories so that people can only see 3 stories at one time. So you know when you're browsing through stories and you can see at the top that you've got a couple stories to watch, this will be limited to 3. And in order for anyone to see the rest of your stories, they would need to click like a see more button. What? So that might not sound that dramatic to you, but I just want you to really think about what I'm saying here. It means that your first 3 stories are the only 3 stories that you can really rely on being seen by your audience. People will now have to go out of their way to press a button to see the rest of your story content. Think about what that's going to do to your view count of your stories. Also think about what that's going to do to your strategy for your stories. Suddenly, your first 3 stories now need to become trailers for the rest of your content. They now have this huge job of not only capturing the attention of your audience, which it always has to do, but now it has to persuade your audience to continue watching the rest of your story content. Because if your first 3 stories don't do that, no one's going to see the rest of your story content. So this is what I think people are going to do as a result of this change if it is released. I think the first thing that people are going to do is what I just mentioned. They're going to treat their first 3 stories as trailers for the rest of their story content, and they're going to start putting a lot more effort into those first 3 stories. The second thing that people are going to do is they're going to start including call to actions on like the 3rd story. So you're going to start seeing people say, press the see more button to see what I did next, right? They're going to have to start asking people to actually continue watching their stories because now there's no guarantee. And the third thing, and this kind of sums up the previous 2 things, is that we are going to become a lot less casual with how we use our story feature, and that makes me sad. Suddenly we're going to have to become a lot more strategic than we were previously. Now don't get me wrong, people use strategies in their stories all the time. However, our general approach to our stories up until this point has been a lot more lax than how we use the other features. That's the whole point. You're supposed to be a lot more raw, authentic, behind the scenes content, a lot more flippant with what you're posting. Like that was what this feature was marketed to us to, and we absolutely thrived in it, and everyone uses it quite well. It's probably one of the most frequently used features on Instagram. So with that update, it's going to change things a bit, and people are going to start putting more pressure on themselves to create a higher quality of content than the more raw and authentic content that we currently share on our stories. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you got some value from this video, please can you let me know in the comments so that I know to continue creating more content like this. Also hit like, subscribe, and do that all those other like YouTubey things that I'm supposed to ask for you to do. If you feel like hanging around, I recommend watching this video. It's all about the most frequent mistakes that people are making on Instagram, which is massively hurting their engagement and their growth. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'll see you in my next video.